It was a time when Americans looked inward, re-evaluating their identity in the wake of economic uncertainty, global tensions, and the dawning digital age. Somewhere in that unfolding story, unnoticed and unremarkable at first glance, a small silver-hued coin was born from the clanging hearts of the U.S. mint presses, a coin that, decades later, would spark curiosity, admiration, and eventually, obsession. It was no gold medallion, no shining silver round passed between kings. It was a $quarter, struck in copper and nickel, minted by the millions, and destined for pockets, laundromats, and soda machines across the United States. Yet, within this coin, specifically the quarter dated 1983, lay a peculiar tale, one woven with human error, economic hardship, and unexpected rarity. It was a story no one anticipated, but one that would come to captivate collectors and history buffs alike. The quarter bore the familiar image of George Washington on its obverse, stoic, noble, and unwavering. For more than 50 years, since 1932, Washington's portrait had adorned the coin, his eyes fixed forward with the quiet resolve of a founding father. On the reverse, the spread wings of an American eagle perched atop a bundle of arrows, flanked by olive branches, conveyed both might and peace. This design had become so familiar that it was practically invisible to most Americans, passed between hands with barely a glance. But not all quarters are created equal. The 1983 quarter, despite its plain appearance, was born in extraordinary circumstances. America, still grappling with inflation and fiscal challenges from the 1970s, faced yet another recession in the early years of Reagan's presidency. Unemployment hovered around 10%, and every dollar mattered to the average American family. The U.S. Mint, under pressure to economize and operate efficiently, made several choices that would have unexpected ripple effects. One of those choices was to suspend the production of uncirculated mint sets in 1982 and 1983. This meant that no government-issued collector-quality coin sets were produced for those 2 years. To most people, this detail meant nothing. But to coin collectors and historians, it marked a seismic shift. Without these mint sets, the only 1983 quarters available were the ones released into circulation, coins that went straight into public use, exposed to scratches, dings, and years of wear. Pristine examples of the 1983 quarter were suddenly and dramatically rare. This unintentional rarity created a divide. Unlike coins from years with mint sets, the 1983 quarter didn't have a large reserve of untouched, high-quality specimens sitting in sealed plastic. Instead, the few remaining coins that had managed to survive decades of circulation with minimal damage became increasingly sought after. Collectors, realizing the scarcity of mint-condition 1983 quarters, began to search, to hunt, and to pay, but it wasn't just the absence of mint sets that elevated the 1983 quarter to legendary status. It was the errors, the subtle, often invisible mistakes that made numismatics not just a hobby, but a detective game. Among the surviving 1983 quarters, some bore unusual characteristics, off-center strikes, double dies, or faint imprints of other elements from previous coinage. These anomalies, created by mechanical missteps or rushed production, transformed a simple 25-cent piece into a treasure. There was something oddly poetic about it, a coin, mass-produced during a time of economic struggle, becoming a beacon of value in a future it could never have imagined. These quarters had slipped past millions of eyes for decades. They had been clutched by children buying candy, handed to bus drivers, wedged between couch cushions. And yet, the right one, the lucky one, could hold a secret. It could be worth not pennies more, but thousands, tens of thousands. And, for the rarest and most pristine, it could be nearly priceless. Let's zoom in for a moment on one such coin. Imagine it, freshly minted, sliding off the die with a crisp, mirror-like surface. It shines differently, gleams with perfection. By chance, or perhaps fate, it avoids the fate of most coins. It doesn't tumble into a vending machine. It doesn't clink its way through a dozen registers. Instead, it is saved, perhaps by a bank employee or a curious young collector. It's tucked away, hidden in a drawer or a box, left to rest while the world turns around it. Decades later, it resurfaces. And now, it's not just a coin. It's a relic, and so, as the years passed and the coin continued its silent journey from hand to hand, it carried with it a legacy forged in the heart of a transformative era. It was more than metal. It was more than currency. It was a witness, a silent companion to millions, brushing the edges of history with every transaction, every trade, every memory formed in the background of everyday life, from vending machines to toll booths, from soda fountains to the pockets of blue jeans worn thin by time. This quarter had lived 1,000 lives. It had passed through the hands of schoolchildren with eyes full of dreams, and into the palms of grandparents who remembered the days of silent movies and jukeboxes. It had jingled in glove compartments on cross-country road trips, and nestled into drawers that held trinkets, keepsakes, and tokens of love. The surface, though aged and dulled by time, had come to resemble a mosaic of stories, a living artifact sculpted not by chisels, but by life itself. Under the right light, the wear told tales, the gentle abrasion along Washington's cheek, the softened eagle's feathers on the reverse, and the almost ghost-like fading of the mint mark, all were signs of the journey it had taken and the quiet dignity it bore. And then, something extraordinary happened. A collector, sharp-eyed and seasoned, spotted a subtle anomaly, a detail so minute it escaped the gaze of the ordinary but leapt out like a beacon to the trained observer. The strike, the die, the alignment, the texture, something about this 1983 quarter whispered of rarity, of a minting mishap that turned this everyday coin into a numismatic marvel. The journey of this quarter had been long, but not aimless. It had traveled until it found the one person who would recognize its worth. It had endured, survived, and waited, for that one moment when it would no longer be just another coin in the crowd. Today, this unassuming quarter, once casually tossed into the world with 1983's mass of circulating change, now sits at the center of reverent admiration. No longer just an object of exchange, it is a relic of numismatic wonder, a symbol of scarcity in an ocean of the ordinary. And the value it commands today? A staggering and awe-inspiring $192,000. Not bad for a coin that once bought a handful of gumballs. The year 2000 was more than just the beginning of a new millennium. It was a moment of reflection and anticipation, of looking back at the achievements of the past century and gazing ahead toward the possibilities that lay in the future. In the United States, this sense of transition found its way into nearly every facet of American life. The economy was strong, the internet was booming, and Americans were adjusting to a digital future. In the midst of this transformation, a small, seemingly ordinary piece of pocket change began its own quiet journey into the world of the extraordinary. The 2000 USA $quarter. To the average person, a $quarter from the year 2000 might seem utterly commonplace. After all, these coins were produced in the hundreds of millions and distributed widely across the country. Most of them were spent on vending machines, tucked into coin jars, or slipped into parking meters without a second thought. But among this flood of minted metal, a select few quarters stood apart, not due to any immediate or obvious difference, but because of what they would come to represent to collectors, historians, and numismatists years later. The 2000 USA quarter was a part of the 50-state quarters program, an ambitious initiative launched by the United States Mint in 1999. This program aimed to release 5 new quarters each year, each celebrating one of the 50 states in the order they joined the Union. The quarters featured intricate designs on the reverse, showcasing iconic symbols and themes representative of each state. By 2000, the second year of the program, the initiative was already a cultural phenomenon, drawing widespread public attention and participation. In that year, quarters were issued for Massachusetts, Maryland, South Carolina, New Hampshire, and Virginia. Each design was a miniature canvas of state pride, Massachusetts with its image of the Minuteman, Maryland with its historic State House, South Carolina featuring a palmetto tree and mockingbird, New Hampshire's famous Old Man of the Mountain, and Virginia celebrating the founding of Jamestown. While the designs themselves were meticulously crafted and carefully selected, the real magic of the 2000 quarters lay in the details, the fine lines, the precise lettering, the overall composition. Minted at the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, these coins were struck in copper-nickel clad, but their value went far beyond their 25-cent face. As with any mass-produced item, occasional errors crept into production, errors that, over time, would make specific quarters extraordinarily rare and incredibly valuable. One such example is the 2000 South Carolina quarter. While millions were produced, a minute fraction featured a striking misalignment in the die, resulting in an off-center strike that made the coin appear slanted. In another case, certain Virginia quarters displayed a double die obverse, a rare and visually captivating error where the images appear slightly double due to a misstep in the striking process. Collectors began to take notice. Coin forums lit up with discussions, and treasure hunters began pouring through their spare change with magnifying glasses and coin books in hand. What began as a government initiative to teach history and foster state pride had become a nationwide treasure hunt. The excitement only grew when stories surfaced of individuals discovering these rare quarters in the most mundane of places, tucked into old coin rolls, buried in couch cushions, or jingling in the pocket of a forgotten winter coat. But what makes a specific 2000 USA quarter dollar soar in value isn't just the error itself. It's the condition, the scarcity, the provenance. A quarter in mint state, untouched by time or transaction, holds a mystique that speaks to the allure of perfection. Add an error or anomaly, and suddenly you have a coin that transcends its utilitarian purpose. It becomes art, history, and rarity all rolled into one. Among the known rare specimens, one particular coin, a flawless 2000 Virginia quarter, struck on the wrong planchet and preserved in impeccable condition, has come to epitomize the unexpected value that lies in everyday objects. The coin's surfaces gleamed under expert lighting, revealing subtle textural differences and hints of an origin story that defied conventional minting practice. Experts analyzed its weight, composition, and even the microscopic ridges along its edge to verify its authenticity. This coin passed through the hands of appraisers, collectors, and numismatic scholars, each one marveling at how something so ordinary could carry such extraordinary value. Its story wasn't just about metal, it was about timing, rarity, and the endless curiosity that drives collectors to search for meaning in the minutiae. And after years of study, validation, and admiration, the true worth of this unassuming 2000 USA quarter dollar came to light. Not merely a symbol of a state or a slice of American heritage, but a treasure tucked into the folds of history. Its final value was nothing short of astonishing, $125,000. In the quiet rhythm of pocket change, where most people see only small value, there are certain coins that carry stories deeper than their face might suggest. The 2019 USA quarter dollar is one of those rare instances where history, craftsmanship, and a dash of mystery converge in the palm of your hand. In 2019, the United States Mint was continuing its release of the America the Beautiful Quarters program, a multi-year initiative launched in 2010 to honor national parks and significant sites across all 50 states, territories, and the District of Columbia. The 2019 lineup included Lowell National Historical Park in Massachusetts, American Memorial Park in the Northern Mariana Islands, War in the Pacific National Historical Park in Guam, San Antonio Missions National Historical Park in Texas, and Frank Church River of No Return Wilderness in Idaho. Each design brought with it a story, an identity rooted in American soil, engraved into a 5.67-gram copper-nickel alloy disc with a reeded edge. Let's linger a moment on one of the more visually complex designs, the San Antonio Missions quarter. Inspired by Spanish colonial influence and religious symbolism, the reverse featured 4 quadrants. One quadrant bore wheat, symbolizing farming. Another had arches and a bell, echoing mission architecture. The third displayed a lion, signifying Spanish heritage, and the fourth showed waves, nodding to the acequias, or irrigation systems. It was a design that felt both sacred and utilitarian, an homage to hard work, faith, and survival in a new world. Holding this quarter feels like grasping a microcosm of the birth of American culture, and then, among these millions struck by modern machinery, came a few that stood out. These weren't just coins, they were phenomena. Whether by error, anomaly, or sheer fluke, certain 2019 quarters were born different. Perhaps it was a subtle doubling on the lettering, a curious misalignment, a mint mark where there shouldn't be one, or the elusive experimental finish that gave it a frosty, almost ethereal glow under light. These minute details are what sent collectors and enthusiasts into a frenzy. It's easy to imagine a moment in a grocery store checkout line, where a cashier hands over your change and a single quarter catches your eye, not for its monetary worth, but because something about its look feels unusual. That is how many of these prized coins find their way into collections, unnoticed by the world, noticed by the few. The Philadelphia and Denver mints were the main producers of the 2019 quarters. Yet, certain errors, like the double die on "In God We Trust" or a rare off-center strike, were mostly tied to specific mint locations, making coins from one mint potentially more valuable than another, depending on their quirks. For example, a Denver mint coin with the right kind of doubling could elevate a simple pocket find into a museum-worthy artifact. Each coin was a canvas for history, geography, and art. Each one whispered stories of forgotten lands, of natural beauty, of war, culture, and architectural evolution. And within these stories were hidden treasures, literal ones, for the savvy collector. One such coin, a 2019 $2 struck with an incredibly rare minting error, pristine condition, double die reverse, and full original luster, changed hands not in a traditional marketplace, but between passionate numismatists who understood its rarity without needing a magnifying glass. This particular coin, handled only with gloves, encapsulated a level of preservation and rarity that transcended the usual metrics of grading. There's a strange poetry to coins like this. They are mass-produced, meant to be used, spent, lost, and forgotten. And yet, by a twist of fate, a small number rise above the crowd, becoming coveted, preserved, and celebrated. It's as if they were destined to outlive their mundane purpose. In the world of numismatics, such coins are not merely appreciated for their physical attributes. They are time travelers. They carry the year 2019 on their face, but they echo centuries of human migration, colonization, innovation, and resilience. They offer collectors not just metal and value, but meaning. One lucky individual, aware of what they held, decided never to spend the coin. Years later, that decision proved wise. After extensive authentication, research, and storage in perfect conditions, the true value of the 2019 USA $2 was revealed. Not in cents. Not in dollars. But in the astonishment and awe it provoked among collectors and historians alike, its final valuation? A remarkable $90,000.